and help them to explain or interpret arrhythmias, and how can arrhythmias are related, or how can they be related to the causes of these arrhythmias, meaning the disease itself. I mean, the list can be much longer than this, but I just thought I'd share with you some of the contributions by medical engineering. However, we still have a lot of challenges. Non-invasive monitoring, for example, of hypertension. Until today, as you know, we measure hypertension or the blood pressure in an indirect way. If you want to measure blood pressure directly, you must have a small hole into the skin, insert a needle, and you have intravenous blood pressure measurement, which is considered to be invasive. So it's a challenge for engineers to think about how can we solve this. Predicting life-threatening arrhythmias. Can I one day reach a point where I say to the patient, look, be careful, in 20 minutes you may have heart attack, or you may have cardiac fibrillation or cardiac arrest? That's still a great challenge. Although there have been lots of efforts, many people, thousands of people actually have worked in trying to solve this problem, but it's still not solved. Reliability of implantable devices. Implantable devices, of course, as like a pacemaker, but they're with us for some time, but there are more and more implantable devices because we're having more miniaturized electronic devices that can be implanted in the body. But still, how do we energize it? How do we make these implantable devices with their sensors compatible with the human body in order not to be rejected? Still challenges for engineers. How do we harvest mechanical energy from the heart, for example, to power up these devices? And instead of just doing simulation by electrical engineering tools, mechanical engineering tools, and why not integrate all these phenomena and try to have a more comprehensive model that would cover the different types of phenomena to have a better understanding of the disease and treatment of disease. So this is what I wanted to say about cardiovascular disease. The second challenge that we face in this country and in this region is injury. Injury, as you know, as I told you earlier on, it's the second cause of death, and especially, by the way, for children. In a survey that was recently published, asking parents how many of you actually use seatbelts for children, 89% of parents said we don't use seatbelts. Only very small percentage of people use seatbelts. 67% of these deaths due to injury are due to traffic accidents. So it's a serious problem. But again, of course, there are a lot of contributions that people can make. Of course, legislations and rules and regulations, etc. But what can engineers do? Of course, they can do a lot of things. And I actually was thinking about this myself, and I wanted to think simple, at least to make it interesting to you. We can, for example, develop smart child car restraints. You know, now if you drive a car, if you don't have your seat belt, I think you'll have a lot of noise. Can we do something similar with children in order to force parents to have seat belts? Can we improve baby walkers? Can we develop some energy absorbing surfaces in playgrounds to minimize the effect of injury? Can you all hear me? Okay, well, in case. So what about introducing more advanced assessment of injury? Actually, we at the American University of Sharjah have been working on this for quite a long time. I myself been working in the assessment of injury for more than probably 13, 14 years. And I worked with Johns Hopkins on this because it's a serious problem. And our focus is primarily on brain injury and spinal cord injury. And to quantify and assess the level of brain injury, Because there are several methods. The most popular and the method that's used usually is standard imaging techniques like CT scanning or MRI scanning. But we thought if you wanted monitoring, to monitor the improvement, if there is an improvement, or to monitor the level of deterioration, we use brain signals like EEG signals. And through these signals, we look for certain indicators. In electrical engineering, we use something called entropy. I think chemical engineers also use the same thing. So we measure the entropy of the signal. And through that measure, we are able to assess the, how can I say it, the activity of the brain in such a way that the more active the brain is, the more uncertain the information, the higher the entropy. And we've observed with experiments on animals that if the signal is becoming more organized, it means the brain is less active and the entropy is less. So we have actually a US patent for this, and this is an experiment conducted on animals comparing a method to help people who have brain injury, which is basically what we call hypothermia, cooling the brain immediately after the injury. And this is, by the way, an advice, or sometimes devices now are being developed, that if a child or even an adult suffers from brain injury, whether it's through impact or for elderly like cardiac arrest, it's advisable to cool the brain down before taking him or her to hospital. And here we're comparing hypothermia versus no hypothermia, and we notice that the brain neurological outcome is better with hypothermia. And nowadays, by the way, if you go to the internet, you will find devices already available for cooling brains for children. We also work, as I said, in spinal cord injury. Spinal cord injury, at the moment, we conduct our experiments, controlled experiments on animals, and we are able to develop quantitative measures to give a quantity, a number for the level of injury. The third challenge is cancer. The most popular here, breast, lung, and colorectal cancers. And cancer does not really differentiate between ages. Of course, probably the highest the number of people hit by cancer are in the ages of 50s or 60s. But you can see from these statistics here that other ages can suffer from cancer. So what are the challenges? Early cancer detection. By the way, today I was reading in the Emirates newspaper. They say 97% of early detected cancers can be treated. Isn't that great news? Yeah, 97%. That's a huge success. So this is still a challenge. Differential treatment of cancer and spare normal cells. And we have with us Dr. Ghalib. I mean, he spent a lot of, many years, a lot of his time trying to target only cancer cells and not to harm the normal cells. Experimental data. There is a lot of data, but this data is not organized in such a way where it can be useful for scientists. And develop cancer models from genomics. Of course, models are still needed by engineers. As I told you earlier on, I can talk about more healthcare challenges in this country, but since I have limited time, I want to talk about a couple of other topics that one of them is close to my heart because this is what I do, and the other one is because we are in a university here, so education is our business. So I'm going to talk about the brain and the nervous system and education. So for the brain and the nervous system, the top of the challenges, we have limited understanding of how the brain works. There are so many people working and interested in how the brain works, and but the people are taking it very seriously, to the point that they're even trying to think or find out what you're thinking about. Actually, I met a scientist from Berkeley who actually managed to display on a screen your thoughts, what you're thinking about. Of course, not exactly, yeah? Just few of the thoughts that you have in mind, and I can myself see it. It's coming. One day we'll be able to read your thoughts. So you better be careful. Small number of diseases. According to the National Institute of Health, more than 400 brain diseases actually are challenging the medical doctors, engineers, etc. But only a handful of injuries are being addressed. You know, the usual. Alzheimer, Parkinson's disease, epileptic seizures, those are what we know. And we have developed the tools and the instruments to recognize them. But can we help in treating them? There are some successes, but there are a lot of failures, and still they're considered to be a great challenge for the engineering community. And restore or enhance the nervous system. And cognitive enhancement, for example, was one of the topics that I'm interested in, and I'll talk about it in a minute. Interact with the nervous system non-invasively. You know, the brain, for example, covered with the skull, it's stopping us from reaching the sources of information in a safe way. That's why on many occasions, in many experiments, we have to drill holes through the skull to go that deep inside the brain, insert electrodes in order to record signals from whether it's from the surface of the brain or deep brain measurements. Or even if you want to stimulate the brain, still successful deep brain stimulation occurs if you insert long electrodes through the skull and through the brain. So can we reach one day a point where we can record signals from different parts of the brain without hurting or harming the subject? So this is what I told you about. This is one of the projects that I'm working on in cognitive enhancement, where we try to have people who are working in a controlled environment where the high level of attention is required. And with us, Abdullah. Where's Abdullah? Abdullah?
He's in front of the...
Outside? Okay. Abdullah is working on this project. And Ahmed, I think Ahmed is away also. And another example of the challenge for engineers. Epileptic seizures. We can tell if there is a seizure, but can we predict a seizure? Again, because you know people who have epilepsy, if you can really tell them just a few minutes or before the occurrence of epilepsy, you can help them and save sometimes their lives. So what do we do? The latest edition of the IEEE Spectrum talks about this problem. And they come up with, still I think, basic ideas, but they're not there yet. I mean, this is what's been published. They're trying to use like signals from the heart rate variations and all of that to predict whether there will be an epilepsy or not. But your best bet, if somebody has an epilepsy and you really want to advise this person, until today, that's why I say it's a challenge. It's the dog, basically. The dog has a much better sense of epilepsy than all of our instrumentations. And it can tell you actually, not minutes, sometimes even an hour earlier, which is quite interesting. Of course, people are still thinking why this is happening. This picture, I thought I'll share it with you. This picture was published in Nature in June. Do you know what this man is holding? This man is holding, it looks like a capsule, some pharmaceutical that's going to swallow. But scientists feel that this is going to be the future of electroceuticals. Rather than pharmaceuticals, where we swallow all these pills, maybe one day we will have electronic devices that can help you control your blood pressure, for example. At the moment, we swallow all these pills every day to make our blood pressure constant, or at least normal. But can we adjust that using some electronic devices and save ourselves all these chemicals? Anyway, talking about education, this list here shows you biomedical engineering departments in different parts, different countries within the Middle East and Africa. In UAE, we're okay. We still probably need more. Turkey and Iran and Egypt are doing probably the highest number of programs. What are the challenges in education? Invest more money in research and development and innovation. And I think we all know that we have a serious problem with money and investment in this area. Physicians should understand engineering tools. Last week I was visited by a colleague who came all the way from Singapore to talk about specific problems because he could not understand the tools that I was developing. And we tried through Skype and telephone, it did not work. He had to travel all this way in order to explain to him in details. So education should focus on this. Graduates should be able to translate research discoveries into useful innovations because, think about it, even at AUSC, we produce so many master theses, but how many of these master theses made it to the market? Maybe none or a few. And the same, by the way, not just for AUS. If you go to any other university, you will find only a very small number of ideas that made it to the market. Why? Because we are engineers, we're designers, we're not business people. Maybe we need to change paradigm of learning, yeah? And we need to learn these skills where we can move our products into the market. And we also need to talk about issues that are important to industry. For example, regulation or regulatory sciences, ethics, etc. Finally, I want to talk about healthcare expenditure worldwide. Look at the screen here. You will see that in the Middle East, we're doing okay. We're somewhere in the middle here. In comparison with countries like United States, Australia, Europe, we're okay, but we still need to spend more. Although, spending does not mean we're doing a good job, because there is an issue of efficiency here. Are we really spending the money in the right way? So that's a question that we need to address. But anyway, in the GCC, total healthcare expenditure will increase from 46 billion to 133 billion by 2018, which means more hospitals, more clinics, and hopefully more biomedical engineering. Qatar is doing probably the best in terms of biomedical engineering research. They have already established their Qatar Biomedical Research Institute, and they have committed 2.8% of their GDP towards R&D, which is great news for scientists and engineers. In Saudi Arabia also, $32 billion are allocated for education, training, and science and technology, and R&D, which is also great news. In UAE here, healthcare or interest in healthcare maybe can be extracted from this chart here. It shows the visitors to Arab Health, which is held in Dubai every year. Last year we had more than 100,000 people visiting this exhibition. In conclusion, there is room for everyone, whether you're an electrical engineer or a chemical engineer or a mechanical engineer. Dr. Kindan? Healthcare information management, computer engineering, point of care technologies, that would again, biomedical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers would be needed. Neural engineering, again, you need biologists, you need neuroscientists, you need electrical engineers, nanomedicine, as we explained earlier on, in chemical engineering, high resolution imaging, again, engineering and physics and biology are all needed. And finally, surgical robotics, where also electrical and mechanical engineering can play a major role. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Nashash and Dr. Ghalib and all the great leaders that you have here. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about Khalifa University, where I come from. So Khalifa University was actually founded in 2007 by a decree of the United Arab Emirates President, His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan. And it was part of the plan for the Abu Dhabi 2030 plan of the knowledge-based economy. So we were actually, there's many pieces in that puzzle, and Khalifa University was built to be one of them. So since 2007 till now, we have established 9 undergraduate departments in engineering and 7 graduate programs. Today I will be talking more about the one specific to biomedical engineering. So we are only one college, College of Engineering, but we are also working on building a College of Medicine and a College of Science very soon. In fact, we're quadrupling in size. We're becoming 4 times bigger to house the College of Medicine as well as the College of Science. So basically we are an independent, towards the knowledge-based economy goal, we're an independent, non-profit, multicultural, co-ed institution as you guys are. Of course, our main focus is teaching and research. In fact, research is very important to us. That the full name of the university, which is not spelled out, is Khalifa University of Science, Research and Technology. So we have that as part of our title, and there's a huge emphasis and a huge investment in research, also of partnering with leading universities that are in research. So the Biomedical Engineering Department at Khalifa was in fact established in conjunction with the Georgia Institute of Technology in the United States, which is consistently ranked #1 or #2 in biomedical engineering in the US. So we established the program and designed the curriculum with the Georgia Tech. Of course, we aim to graduate leaders and innovators that make contribution towards the knowledge-based economy. Biomedical engineering program at KU was one of the latest additions after the traditional field, mechanical, electrical, and so forth. We were officially born in 2010, and our main role was to be a pioneering, or to play a pioneering role in the UAE and region in academic excellence, but also research and innovation. Another very unique thing to our existence is to be the first part, or the first 4 of the 4+4 medical schools. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the American model of medical education, which is the 4 pre-med and then the 4 medical school, and that's precisely so. In fact, when this is accomplished by having a medical school, obviously, we would be the first program in the Middle East with biomedical engineering specifically designated as a pre-med program. In fact, very few in the world have that, including the US. So that would be a great advantage. It's in the works. We hope it will happen soon. So our bachelor degree in biomedical engineering, as I said, done with Georgia Tech, is a highly interdisciplinary program in which we use engineering, science, and technology to solve problems in medicine and biology. So as such, the program or the curriculum integrates engineering and molecular and cellular biology into one single core, which is 45 credits, in addition to the traditional engineering curriculum where we have math and science courses, just like the ones you all take, as well as general studies. I'm not going to spend much time here, but for the sake of completion, giving you the whole picture. So these are just an example. So basically, before I go to that slide, I just want to show you that we work on representing the modern view of biomedical engineering, which is basically a highly interdisciplinary field that spans an entire spectrum of subfields, from biomechanics to genetics to tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, biomaterials, drug delivery, medical instrumentation, smart wearables, as well as biorobotics. So just a very quick glance at our core courses. And in addition to the core courses and the engineering foundation that we give to the students, we also have 2 specialization tracks. Those at the moment are one in regenerative medicine, and the other is what we refer to as human augmentation, which I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about research. So in fact, our specialization tracks at the university were aligned with our research focus, and the research focus was aligned with the current health challenges in Abu Dhabi, the region, and globally to a lesser sense, but more focused on the regional, local and regional. So this brings us to the masters in master's opportunities that we have, and we have a total of 3. One of them is a degree where we do a master's by research, where basically it's the old English system, and we sort of inherited that from our Sharjah campus, which is, by the way, now on its way of getting dissolved. That's everything is moving to Abu Dhabi. So basically, this is a project-based research, although we have, based on the recommendation of the Ministry of Higher Education, have introduced some courses to that. It's a degree that has 36 credits with 2 types of study modes, full-time and part-time. The 2 new masters in biomedical engineering, one is in electrical and computer engineering with a BLE specialization, and the other is in mechanical with a BLE specialization. And I just wanted very quickly to share it with you. Basically, we have 36 credits. We have 24 credits in this one that are taught courses, and the 12 that basically are within the research preparation, the thesis preparation. And similarly, I will not spend much time on that. In mechanical engineering, also specialization, biomedical engineering. Our PhD in biomedical engineering, which some of you here might be interested in, basically it's highly interdisciplinary. It's 24 credits of taught courses with a research thesis, and we also have a couple modes with which we do the program. And this is just a quick glance at the requirements. Of course, if any of you want to talk about this, as per my discussions with Dr. Nashash and Dr. Ghalib, Nicholas and I will be more than happy to give you all the details about the requirements, deadlines, all the boring logistics. And so just a bit of information about the assistantships. In fact, most of our assistantships in the university are for non-UAE students, and the reason for that, although we are 80% Emiratis, 20% expats, but the reason for that is the 80% Emirati, or the bigger portion, who want to pursue graduate school, have already a different type of funding that I'm not including here from Wuhud, which is a different scale of assistantship. The assistantship that I'm showing here on screen is specifically for non-UAE nationals, for the masters and for the PhD students. Obviously, you can see from the amount of these packages and the fact that it's a full package paying for stipend, tuition, insurance, and whatnot, it's very competitive. Okay, so I'm going to quickly finish all that stuff so we can go to the good stuff. Okay, so what kind of research do we do in biomedical engineering? So we've been in the department building the labs and the research programs for the past 4 to 5 years. We do basic and applied research, and as I said, it's mainly focused on the current health challenges in the UAE region and the world, one of which is cardiovascular disease, which is the number 1 cause of mortality in the UAE and the region. Then we have type 2 diabetes, which basically out of every 4 Emiratis, 1 is usually diagnosed or expected to get type 2 diabetes, which is very it's a very high prevalence rate, a little bit over 25%. But more scary than that, more alarming than that, is the onset of this disease and other autoimmune diseases. So, for example, while we find that the beginning or the onset of typical diseases like this, such as type 2 diabetes, are in the 40s for other populations, we find that in the UAE it's actually in the 30s. So we have at least 10 to 15 years, using an engineering term, what is it? Not the lag, but it's ahead by 10 to 15 years, which is extremely alarming. Obesity, we are number 5 in obesity in the world, which is again very alarming. But again, what's even more alarming is the fact that although the United States is number 3 in the world with obesity, our children are double the rate of obesity than the United States. So that speaks volumes about the trend where we're going, where you can clearly see it's not if we continue the way we are as a society, it's not very good. And then there's trauma. Again, we are among the top countries in the world in trauma, and in fact, mortality of children between 0 to 12 years old, the number cause of death is car accidents, which is again very, very scary. So as such, we have formed our research focus around some of these challenges. At the moment, we have 2 main research groups. We have the West group, represented by Professor Christopher here, where they do tissue engineering, regenerative medicine, mechanobiology, genomics, and drug delivery. And there's the DAG group, which is my group. We do medical devices and wearables, human aids, biorobotics are the main areas that we are currently researching. We have 8 fully equipped state-of-the-art labs: tissue engineering, genomics, drug delivery, gate lab, zebrafish, microscopy, human gates, repeated twice just because it's my lab, sorry, that was a mistake, electrophysiology, and robotics. So I'm going to give you a quick sneak preview, but I hope you in fact come visit us and see those labs for yourself, whether you join us or whether you collaborate with us from wherever else you are working. This is the work done by Dr. Jeremy Teal and Dr. Tim McLaughlin, our department chair, in tissue engineering and mechanobiology. And basically, Jeremy and Tim have been doing cellular physiology, looking at using the mechanobiology perspective, using various platforms, including cell biology, tissue engineering, imaging, computation, etc. And these are some of the current funding that we are using for that research. So, in fact, in terms of the research funding, we're quite lucky because in addition to external funding, which you see some of it here, such as Jalila and Terry Fox, we have a very generous funding, research funding platform as part of the university, and that's what I will refer to as either CURB or Khalifa University internal funding. Professor Nicholas, who is right here and will be happy to discuss his work with you, works on the very exciting field of tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. He works with his team of students on developing robots physiologically relevant in vitro disease models, again targeting diabetes type 2 and cardiovascular disease by combining stem cell and tissue engineering technologies. And as you can see, he was nicely funded from various organizations to work on several of these exciting projects. Dr. Habiba Al-Safar is our Emirati rock star, and she was actually one of the 25 people who were awarded by Sheikh Mohammed Al Maktoum recently as being the first Emirati to develop a GWAS, we call it, which is Genome-Wide Association Study of the UAE Bedouin population. It's the first study of its kind in the Middle East, and basically she works on identifying genomic sequencing and expression, carrying genes for various diseases, mainly some of the ones that I discussed, such as type 2 diabetes and obesity. Dr. Sheila Tamim works on cardiovascular disease, genetics and mechanical forces. The interesting picture that you see in front of you is a zebrafish lab. It's the first one in the UAE, where basically what he does, he uses zebrafish as a model to study functional, mechanosensitive genes in vascular development and human disease. Dr. Khan, which some of you might know who he is works in electrophysiology. He has an electrophysiology lab, and his main recent emphasis, at least, is designing mobile devices and wearable devices that are low cost and could be used in developing countries to monitor fetal heart rate variabilities and stuff. So he looks at physiological and signal processing, modeling, low-cost medical instrumentation to look at various clinical problems, such as fetal cardiac disorders, sleep apnea, etc. So he actually was one of the few people in the UAE that got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant and is in the process of applying for expansion for that grant. Dr. Sokwanti is in drug delivery, and he looks at the development of novel drugs. So one of the interesting things is the ability to complement each other's work. So for example, as soon as you find that certain diseases are expressed, such as type 2 diabetes, for example, are expressed in a mode that's a little bit different in our population than other populations, then that automatically disqualifies a lot of the drugs that we've been taking for years towards treatment and so forth. So this brings out the new exciting continuation of that work, or complementing that work of designing drugs that are actually custom made to basically meet those needs. I'll very quickly show my lab. I work on human movement and augmentation, and that means studying human gait, but also all types of movement as related to the health challenges that I mentioned, such as, for example, one of the big things that diabetic patients have is neuropathy or diabetic foot, where they can no longer sense what's happening in their peripheries. And so this is one of the things that we do in terms of both device development as well as applied research. So I guess I don't have how much time? We're done. Okay, so I'll quickly, I was going to talk about challenges and opportunities, but you guys are welcome to have my slides and you can take a look at them, and so that's it. Thank you. Now we have our very own Dr. Khalid Hussaini, a professor here from AUS. Dr. Khalid Hussaini graduated with a PhD in chemical engineering, biomedical track from Brigham Young University, Utah. His research interests involve sequestering chemotherapeutic agents in polymetric micelles, liposomes, and other carriers, and using ultrasonic power to release the contents to the tumor site, thus avoiding the side effects of conventional chemotherapy. His other areas of interest include non-viral gene delivery, ultrasonic bone healing, and surface modification. Dr. Khalid will be discussing with us his drug delivery research at AUS internationally.
About the opportunities, they talked about the biomedical engineering worldwide and also in the UAE. I'm going to talk a little bit more specific about what I do in my research and what we have been able to accomplish. Part of my research has been done in the US and what we've been doing here in the UAE. I am just going to start out by saying that my area is drug delivery, and my specific area in drug delivery is cancer, is chemotherapy. But drug delivery does not only apply to chemotherapy, it also applies to diabetes, for example. There has been several studies that show that if you apply ultrasound with insulin, you can actually allow the insulin to penetrate into your stratum corneum, which is your skin, into your bloodstream. And so instead of the diabetes, people who have diabetes actually having injections, you can have a transducer that will get the insulin into your system that way. So this is one example of drug delivery. It's something that I'm not working on per se, but I just want to let you know that my area is not the only area of drug delivery. It's a very wide area. All of us are familiar with the conventional side effects of chemotherapy. Can you give me some of these effects? Hair loss. Fatigue. That's the fatigue. Okay. Hair loss. Vomiting. Nausea. Vomiting. Yes. Okay. Most people are familiar with this. Most people at the beginning, the first one that comes to mind is hair loss, and that's because it's visible. People can actually see it. And so, unfortunately, hair loss is probably the smallest problem that chemotherapy patients undergo, because chemotherapy is very difficult, it's very tough on the body. And so the area that I've been involved with in the last 17 years is to develop nanoparticles, where you can put the chemotherapy inside the nanoparticle and then put it through the IV, put it through the bloodstream, but it stays sequestered, it stays inside this nanoparticle, and then upon reaching to the cancer, then we release it using ultrasound. I'll talk a little bit about the mechanism of the ultrasound, but what I like about this area is that it combines passive targeting, active targeting, and trigger targeting, and I think I referred to all of these in my presentation. So as I mentioned, As I mentioned, we will use particles, small nanoparticles. The ones that I will talk about today are polymeric in nature. And we use ultrasound to trigger the release of the drug from these carriers. Okay, so this okay, sorry. Thank you. So why do you think we use ultrasound? When you hear ultrasound, what comes to mind? Babies. Okay, yeah. So ultrasound is very benign. It's very safe. And so the ultrasound technology is very well known, very well published, and also it's safe. So we can apply it to the body without affecting it, without causing mutation, without causing damage, so on and so forth. And so it's a very attractive mode of delivery. The ultrasound wave, in addition to the fact that it's non-invasive also, so you do not need surgery, the waves can be controlled and focused just like any other waves. You know, light waves, you can focus them onto one point. Same thing with ultrasound waves. If you want to focus it onto one point, you can actually also focus it on the point. In this case, the focus would be on the tumor. And so you can only focus all of the release of the chemotherapeutic on the tumor and avoid any chemotherapeutic or very minimal chemotherapeutic being delivered to a healthy tissue. The ultrasound has a synergistic effect. They found, studies have found that if you apply, let's say ultrasound can kill maybe 5% of the cells and chemotherapy can kill 30% of the cells. If you apply ultrasound and ultrasound and chemotherapy, you will not kill 35, but you'll kill more like 80. There's a synergism, there's an added effect of ultrasound with the chemotherapeutic agents. And also, ultrasound, as I just mentioned now, when I was talking about the diabetes, it can be used to make for sonoporation, to make small pores, and these small pores in the skin or in any cell will allow more drug to diffuse in. So it actually will help in the diffusion of blood. In addition to the fact that if you increase the temperature of a tumor above 41 degrees, you can kill cells by hyperthermia, by an increase in the temperature above 41, 42, I think is a safe number. Now, the portion, as I said, ultrasound is a trigger mechanism, but we also have the particles. The particles I will talk about are polymeric in nature. And these particles are very attractive for several reasons. Mainly, what they found about 15 years ago, there was a paper published that showed something called passive targeting, where the tumor, the angiogenesis of the tumor is much different than the angiogenesis, or the growth of the tumor is very different than normal cells. They found that the capillaries of the tumor are quite a bit smaller than normal capillaries, than healthy capillaries, and therefore, if you apply, and also the capillaries themselves are very easily, they have pores inside them, and so it's easy for the particles to diffuse into the tumor than it is to diffuse into regular cells. So again, you have smaller capillaries, and these capillaries are also leaky. And so if you put the chemotherapeutic in the bloodstream, a lot of it will end up being accumulating at the tumor site because of this leaky or defective vasculature. These micelles, these carriers are actually small enough that they can extravasate, that they can actually penetrate into the tumor more preferentially. That's called passive diffusion. When they started with the area of drug delivery, the main problem was that it's being recognized by the immune system. Remember, the immune system, whenever it sees something that's foreign, it wants to attack it. But these particles, there was about 25 years ago, there was a huge revolution in drug delivery when they found that if you can take the particle and you can coat it with polyethylene oxide or polyethylene glycol, you can actually prevent its recognition by the immune system. And so, which means that once it goes in the bloodstream, it can circulate for a very long time, well, not very long time, but for a long time, long enough for it to accumulate at the tumor and cause its release by ultrasound or by other means. Micelles also are small enough that they will escape renal excretion. You don't want them to be excreted by the kidneys. And as I said, large enough to accumulate at the tumor by this enhanced permeation and retention effect. They're easy to use. Micelles, the micelles I will talk about, are easy to incorporate the drug inside them. And the micelles that I will talk about are formed by floronic, and floronic has been shown to overcome multi-drug resistance. Multi-drug resistance is a huge problem in drug delivery, especially in cancer, because all of us know that if somebody goes into relapse, so they get the cancer again, usually the second time the cancer attacks is a lot more aggressive, mainly because the cancer cells get smarter. They know that this is a drug that's trying to kill them, and so they get smarter, they develop some mechanisms where they can fight it. And that's why, unfortunately, the second time when the cancer comes, I'm not sure about the exact percentage, but it's a very high percentage that the person will not, that the patient will not make it. But these chemotherapeutic, this particle itself has been shown, the chemical formulation of the particle has been able to overcome multi-drug resistance. Now, this is the, I think I have loud enough voice. I've been lecturing for 11 years, so I'm just not going to use it. This is the basic premise of the research. What you have is you have nanocarriers, and these are the nanocarriers here, and this is the drug. So the drug is the green spots inside, and as it goes through the bloodstream, it stays intact, it stays inside the capsule, and upon the irradiation with ultrasound, then the drug will diffuse out. Let's say that this is where the tumor is, and so this is where you release the tumor. You're releasing preferentially to where you want the drug to act and not all over the body, so you can avoid the side effects of conventional chemotherapy. And this is obviously very simplistic, and this is not the way it happens in the body per se, but I'm simplistically trying to show you what the principle of this drug delivery is. Once it empties its contents into the tumor, then obviously it will leave, and there's no, and hopefully it will not affect the healthy cells outside the area where the ultrasound is working. Okay, this is the carrier that we'll talk about. I know our background here is not necessarily for chemistry, so I'm gonna just try to talk more about some of the results that we found. We wanted to see that if the drug was encapsulated inside these micelles, these capsules, that it does not interact with cells. And so we did, this tail moment refers to the amount of the percent, or the amount of damage to the DNA, which basically means how much of the cancer cell, cancer drug has been able to diffuse and attack the cancers and go to the DNA and kill it. The drug that I'm using is doxorubicin, and it intercalates, it goes into the DNA, and it makes breaks. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to measure the amount of breakage of the DNA, which tells me is if there's a huge amount of breakage, it means that the drug is acting. If there is low amount of breakage, then the drug is not acting. So it looks very promising. I'm going to talk about this one here. If the drug is inside the capsule, you will see that there is no DNA damage, which is good. It means that there's protection. It means that the drug is not interacting with cells. And so if there is no ultrasound, or whenever you do not want it to interact with the healthy cells, there's going to be minimal interaction with these healthy cells. Now, then I wanted also to see a positive control. The positive control is to make sure that the drug is working. The drug actually breaks down the DNA. And up to 9 hours of incubation, you see that there is a substantial amount of DNA damage. Okay? This is a positive control. Remember what I said about the synergism? Ultrasound kills 5%, the drug kills 30%. You actually kill 80, not 35. Well, you can see it here too. So this is the free drug, and then you can see this when you apply the drug, which is called doxorubicin, and the ultrasound, and you see that there is an augmentation of the effect by ultrasound. The synergistic effect of ultrasound. Now, the best results we got is when we took the capsule, we applied ultrasound, and we found that the maximum amount of damage is when you use the capsule, the drug which is inside the capsule, and ultrasound. And so we knew that we had a good drug delivery system that would be able to protect healthy cells and only target tumor cells when the ultrasound is focused onto them. Okay, this is partly of the chemistry, and you're more than welcome. We can discuss this later. I want to make sure that everybody is on top of things. And I think if I talk a little bit more into the electrical engineering aspects, I think I have maybe 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, what we wanted to see how fast does the drug diffuse out. So we have this chemotherapy inside the capsule. How fast is it? And is it a function of the ultrasound intensity? Is it a function of the ultrasound frequency? Because with ultrasound, obviously, you have many parameters that you have to take care of. So we designed this experiment And so what you have is you have a laser that goes in and it excites the drug. You have the drug here which is inside the capsule, and then as it gets excited, you apply ultrasound, and then the emissions are collected. They're filtered by, you filter the excitation wavelength to keep the emissions, and then it's read by a photodetector, and then the data is analyzed that way. Let me show you some of the results here. Basically, when the drug is inside the capsule, the fluorescence is high. So you see here that the drug inside the capsule is high. When it's inside water, the fluorescence is low. When we apply ultrasound, the fluorescence decreases, which means the drug is getting outside the capsule. So we are actually releasing the drug from the capsule using ultrasound. And so what we're interested in, we wanted to see this region. We're very interested in this region. But another exciting factor that we found is when you end the ultrasonication, the drug goes back inside the capsule. So if the drug has been released and some of it diffused out of the tumor region, it will still be able to diffuse back into the capsule, and it will not affect the healthy cells. So we ran some several power densities to see if the intensity of the ultrasound can actually affect this release. And we found as you increase the power intensity, you also increase the release, which makes sense. More ultrasound will release more. And that led us to believe that the method here is more mechanical in nature, because you're using ultrasound. It's not really biochemical, it is actually mechanical in nature. And we have done several studies. Usually these talks take a while, but let me, I just want to show you what we think is happening. Okay, so what we think is ultrasound, when ultrasound acts, especially if it has microbubbles, the ultrasound can cause the implosion of these microbubbles. So the microbubbles will implode, and upon implosion, in a phenomenon called cavitation, a shock wave is generated. These shock waves, if we start out here, so this is the point where the bubble collapsed in the solution. So when the shock wave comes in, and it kind of propagates through the whole media, the whole area where these micelles, these capsules are, and you can see that it shears them open, and that's how it allows the drug to diffuse out. You can see here that this capsule has been sheared open and the drug is released. This one is in the process of being sheared, and this one is waiting for the wave to propagate through to shear. Whenever we talk about ultrasound, we need to make sure that we are in a safe region. We have to, this is if we look at the subharmonic intensity, which is related to the intensity of ultrasound, you have to make sure that you have enough ultrasound to release, because if you use too few or too weak amount of ultrasound, you will not release it, so it's going to stay inside the capsule. But at the same point, if you use too much, you can also damage the tissue. And if you damage the tissue, obviously you don't want to get there. So there is a window therapeutic window here where you can operate. And a lot of what we do now in our lab is to find the optimum parameters. In fact, in ultrasound power intensity, even the concentration of the capsules, that will give us the optimum results against the tumor. This is my presentation. If you have more questions, you're more than welcome to ask me afterwards.
Last but not least, we have with us is Dr. Karim El-Daisi from Imaging Philips Healthcare, Middle East and Turkey. Before he joined Philips Healthcare as its current regional clinical scientist, Dr. Karim worked as a research associate at Computer Engineering with focus on biomedical engineering at University Leipzig in Germany. He had also worked as a medical agent for assignments in the past. In addition to his work in the industry, Dr. Karim has published on several topics such as neural signal processing and modeling. He will today be discussing with us the field of neuroengineering, and he will be open to discussion in the panel of discussion regarding the industrial perspective of biomedical engineering.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Hassan, Dr. Erib, and Stephen Chapter for this kind invitation and for allowing me this chance to talk to this exciting group about biomedical engineering. Everybody can hear me, so? Yeah. No? Okay, so this is we got a note. So, Dr. Hassan has a very nice introduction when it comes to neuroengineering and brain science and computational science. There is a lot of vocabulary for this. So, the wording is a little bit confusing, so please not get confused with this. The naming has to do with what exactly we are talking about in the wording. So when it comes to neuroengineering, the subtitle for me is more important than the title actually. So whatever we call it, brain science, neuroscience, whatever, a lot of people will find it good, a lot of people will find it bad, but it is indeed part of the future music. So this is my message to you. Yeah? So actually the quest for understanding the brain was a little bit older than you can imagine. This papyrus has been reported in one of the seminal books about computation neuroscience from Eric Kandel, 1995. Everybody can read it, I believe. So this is the headers of the whole brain, and in this papyrus there was 6 descriptions of brain fractures, brain injuries, and correlated to malfunctioning motoric disorders. So this was the first in history description and relating motor functions or malfunctions in general in the body to some of the brain regions. So the quest for understanding the brain and how it's influenced our day, our functions, and our human body works is actually too old than you can even imagine. Yeah? So this is one way of making it to understand the brain. I know it looks like a joke. Do we have Germans in the room? Okay, so this could be a little bit offensive for them, but actually it happened. Yeah? It actually happened in the Second World War. Some of the poor enemies have been used as experimental humans. Yeah? So they were opening the skull and put some electricity here and see what would happen. Yeah? So this is not a joke, by the way. Yeah? So and actually we owe them, whatever it's good or bad, the entire maps of the cortical region. So all what we know today about which part of the cortex is doing what is actually has been developed in this time, whatever we like it or not. So this was not a joke. Yeah? There's a lot of theories describing how our brain works and why and what's involved. Yeah? This is one of the most famous ones. Yeah? My wife will tell me, you know, but it's one of the established theories. Yeah? Sorry. When it comes to neuroengineering, or neuroscience or brain science, as I say, you name it as you want. Yeah? But we're all playing in this paradigm, and there are main 3 playgrounds. Yeah? So you have the cognitive functions, the computational system, and the molecular and cellular. Yeah? So when it comes to neuroscience in general, when we want to understand the brain, we will be playing somewhere here. Yeah? When it comes to biomedical engineering, call it neural engineering or computational engineering, we are basically focusing on these. So we're a little bit more interested in understanding the cognition, how we think, how we learn, yeah? how we are doing these memories, long-term, short-term, how we are interpolating these to that, and so on and so on. How can we save all this amount of information? How we can recall this information? Yeah? Learning, of course, and when it comes to computational modeling and systems, yeah, it has to do with the signal analysis, how to model the mechanisms underlying and underpinning the higher, what we call it, the higher brain functions. Yeah? So, one of the underlying questions, if you want to model the brain, if you want to re-engineer the brain, yeah, from the clinicians or the physicians, have a very nice way to do it. Yeah? So they ask you, okay, what's the kidney as a perfect system? Any answers? The kidney is a perfect filter, yeah, this could be, yeah. Okay, the heart is a perfect pump, nice, thank you. And, okay, now it comes unsexy. The brain is a perfect? I'm sorry? Everything, okay, this could be a starting point. Processor? Yeah, computer. This is usually the answer that you will get. The brain is a perfect computer. And if you ask about my humble opinion about this is exactly how it starts being wrong. Yeah? Because when you say a computer, you are making an analogy between something you have no idea about, which is the brain, and something you exactly know, yeah, which is the computer. So actually you are trying to reduce everything from the brain to the computer, not the other way around. Yeah? So if you were to ask me, I would call it a perfect computing system. So it's part of everything. Yeah? It's a computing system because it's a lot of calculations. Yeah? It's a lot of calculations, or this is how we understand it. Yeah? It's a lot of, it would be become more philosophical in a moment. Yeah? But at the end, it's kind of computing system. Okay? So if we start with this, so the question would be how it's doing this computation. Yeah? So, and this is, I'm sorry for the mathematics, yeah, but don't worry about this, I will just say it in a second. So it just, if this is the original system, yeah, and we want to build the model, yeah, so we have some inputs and we have some outputs, yeah, and there are internal states in this system, yeah. So the system is going from state X to xt1, and these are the outputs and these are the translational functions. If we want to simulate or emulate, because this is a debate in itself, yeah, whatever, we want to have the same input and we get the same output. If this is the brain and we have a kind of internal states, yeah, that models these ones, yeah, and other functions that models these ones. The problem is how the brain is doing this transition, I'm sorry here, yeah, and how we will do this transition. If we put this as a black box, if you will put this as a black box, get some input and have some output, we will land to all the findings that we have today. Expert systems, neural networks, whatever you name it. Yeah? So everything that we know today, more or less, and please correct me, Mr. Hassan, yeah, is more or less related to that you are putting all this in a black box and you make a system that looks somehow like the brain, yeah? Give it this input and you get the output that you're designing. But it's little bit related to exactly how the brain works, even if it's called neural. Yeah? So, and why this is so challenging? Why copying the exact mechanism from the real brain is so difficult? Yeah? Because it is. It has all these dimensions. It's spatial, so you have calculations and computations actually accomplished on the level of angstroms, micrometers, millimeters, and meters. Yeah? And it's temporal. You have computations and calculations done below the microsecond, on the millisecond, on the seconds, days and years. So it's a multi-dimension, multi-scale system. Yeah? So it's temporal, spatial, and multi-scale. When you're trying to figure out a model that can capture all this on whatever level, it's not an easy task, if possible. Yeah? It will not stay blank. So we're coming to the solution. Right? So there are a couple of approaches. Yeah? They are trying to address this. Yeah? One of these are the cognitive functionalities, top-down. Yeah? Like, as I said, the expert systems and neural networks comes to modeling, classification, function approximation, artificial intelligence, machine vision, all what we know today. Yeah? And people are trying to make it the other way around. It's down top. Start from a little bit deeper level and try to go up to the level of the cognition. Yeah? So, just to give you a glimpse or an insight or an impression how difficult this is. Yeah? So this is a supercomputer in Japan, 83,000 processor supercomputer, yeah, can match only 1% of your brain. Yeah? Look at the numbers here, so it's called the Fujitsu K. It was ranked number 1 in 2011, now it's number 4. Yeah? They are modeling something like 1.7 million neuron and 10.4 trillion synapse. They are adding 1 petabyte of memory, yeah? Equivalent to 250,000 PCs, and to simulate only 1 second of brain operations. How long does this take on this monster computer? You think? 40 minutes. It took this monster, yeah, it takes actually a whole, I think 10 times like this one, yeah, and a cooling power that's maybe generated in the entire UAE. Yeah? And it took 40 minutes to simulate 1 brain operation. Yeah? But this is still not the problem, yeah? Because we have a more anxious trial. Yeah? This is a 1 billion euro project. To be exact, it's 1.3 billion. Yeah? And a very nice guy called Henry Markham. He has built his own empire in Switzerland. Yeah? And he has a project now for the last 10 years. This is the second phase. Yeah? And now he can still simulate only the complete brain of a rat. Yeah? This is a specially developed supercomputer for IBM called the Blue Brain. Yeah? It's single in the world because it has been developed for this project, so you cannot order it in Amazon. Yeah? And for me, it's still a try and error project. Why? Because Henry Markham and his team, and they might be correct, they have decided to copy exactly the biology and morphology of the brain. Apart from the fact that nobody knows exactly why they are connected this way and what is the logic and the mechanism of the computation behind. So they are just copying the details. Yeah? Every single morphology, biology they know, they are copying. Yeah? In dreaming of that at the end, you will have an activity that's similar to the brain. And my question is, suppose that we will be able to copy exactly the electrical activity of the brain. So we will have exactly the EEG recorded from whatever one of us. We still don't know how these computations are accomplished. But anyhow, this is their vision. Yeah? So they are trying to re-engineer and rebuild the brain in this way. The bad news is that the funding will stop here, and to have a complete brain, they still need all this processing power. So they still need at least 100,000 times the processing power they have today. And IBM has promised that they will deliver this in 2023. So we will be all around to see. Yeah? So what's missing again? What's the problem? Yeah? I believe that the problem or the missing link or the missing hub, yeah, is shared between science and industry. Yeah? Because frankly speaking, I'm working on neuroscience since 2003, yeah? Until today, there is no single industrial institution really willing to fund such projects. Why? They don't see the value. Yeah? There is no real return of investment when it comes to why should I develop all these tools and models. From a biological point of view, or clinical point of view, if you can't find a solution today for a disease, pathology, or a malfunctioning part of your body, this would be a starting point. Yeah? But the problem is when it comes to the brain, nobody can relate a real malfunction or a pathology to the brain except for Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Yeah? And now we are talking about the fully-fledged brain, so it takes it again to the main complex. So from the science missing exactly where should we are looking to? Which part exactly should we copy, model, simulate, study, and start with to find the answer of how exactly the brain performs the calculation or the computation? And the industry should know exactly what the ultimate aim and target of all this engineering is. Yeah? If we can find a common ground between these, this is a nice starting point. So again, this is the computing system of the brain. These are the input preparations, which is the senses, and this is all translated to the mechanisms of computing. And my humble advice, if I'm allowed to, yeah, the more we go fundamental and ask about exactly how the computations are done, this might be a proper way to resolve this and sort this out. Yeah? And I'm not new in this. Actually, I'm following a lot of scientists are doing this, but their main message is that the computation, the very deep sense of computation, is done using two very simple functionalities: separation and approximation. Yeah? If you have two inputs and you can differentiate between them, this is separation. And if you have one input that looks similar to something that you already know, and you identify this as similar, this is approximation. This is all what's about when it comes to computational power in the brain. Yeah? How to do this in mathematics, how to put this in a simulation, this is another nightmare. But the fact is, if we can copy this very deep understanding of computation. So, on this scale again, we need to work on these levels, spatio-temporal. So we need to acquire the neuron synapse level, the network system levels, till the very high level of the brain, and somehow accomplish the linkages between all these temporal scales. Yeah? And again, there are a couple of trials doing this, and they're pretty successful. But again, this is a little bit more deep theoretical now. The applications are still missing. Yeah? Not just to be frustrated at them. Yeah? So the theoretical frameworks that has been already working on this, developing such tools. So there are very similar work from Carl Friston. I would encourage you all to go through this. I mean, who is interested, of course. So that it has to do with the energy minimization and the informational flow. If we have any physicians or mathematicians in the room, okay? No? Okay, so I can say whatever. All body functions, and actually every physical system in the world, it is following a very simple rule, which is free energy minimization. Yeah? Why the brain should be something different. Yeah? And if we all acknowledge the brain is somehow an information processing system, so the flow of information in the brain should be somehow following the energy minimization. Very simple. Yeah? It's not that simple when it comes to mathematics, but this is the underlying concept. Yeah? The liquid state machines developed by Wolfgang Mass, Thomas Natschlager, and Henry Markham again in 2002. This is kind of, anybody knows the automata from Alan Turing? No, I'm not asking this one. Yeah? It's the very basic computer. Alan Turing, okay, very nice. So these are the automata or state machines or finite state machines. Yeah, this kind of brain-like or human-like state machine. Very interesting and very humbling. I have contributed in my PhD and my master to the what's called the temporal finite state machines, actually based on these works together. So it's kind of combination of what they are trying to say. But again, these are theoretical frameworks. And this message is not for fun, so it actually combines the three scales, from the neural synapse to the level of the networks, on both temporally and spatially. Yeah. So I wouldn't dive into the details of this level because it will take another day, but yeah, I'm always there. Okay? So again, this is just starting points. Who is ever interested? Of course, you are free to contact me, and these are starting readings. Yeah. So what is the take-home message? Any help? So there is tons of text in neuroscience. Believe me, there are millions of papers talking about many things. They are all fine, all correct, all important. But as I'm quoting Dr. Hassan now, nobody actually knows how it does work. Okay? So my main message is trying to make knowledge, not text. So if you are willing to contribute to this field, I will be very glad. You will be the king if you can add a knowledge to this field rather than text. Yeah? So this is the first part, and thanks for attention. Thank you very much.
You said that whenever the drug is out of the cell, it can go back to the capsule. After it goes back to the capsule, how will the body dispose from the capsule? Because you said it stays for a long time, circulating inside the body. Will it be decomposed? Will it be exiting back?
Yeah, this is something I didn't actually talk about. It's when you stabilize these micelles, you form an interpenetrating network, and eventually this network will get looser, and some of those chains would leave. And once those chains would leave, then remember I talked about opsonization, where they would come to be tagged, and so they would be excreted from the body. So if you're only left with the network, then the immune system will be able to tag it, and it goes to the liver, it gets detoxified, and it will be excreted.
And during this mechanism, the drug inside the capsule won't have any side effects on the natural cells.
Well, the half-life of these capsules is 17 hours. And so hopefully you will try to release most of the drug during those 17 hours. If you apply ultrasound for maybe continuously for 15 minutes every couple of hours, then hopefully most of the drug will be released at the tumor, and so minimal will diffuse outside.
Thank you.
And remember also I mentioned that there is also passive targeting. So the capsules will preferentially target the tumor. So you get that.
Hello, thank you all for the great presentations. I guess my question and comment is more for an alignment with students. And we see this in our students too, where they're very passionate about biomedical engineering, and then they finish and they try and get a job in the region, and we hear the comment that they're basically technicians, glorified technicians. That's a high level of frustration. And in addition, comment like you made about the industry basically creating the need. How do you envision the environment changing here in the Gulf and the UAE in particular to basically promote research and development from the industry rather than just importing goods and just supporting them as technicians? I mean, how do you see bioengineering maturing here?
For me,
The entire concept.
Yeah, this is a very important question, and as I said in the presentation today, that we in this country and many other countries in the region still have a serious problem with research funding in general. But there are also good indications, good signs of some countries that finally have recognized the importance of R&D, and when they recognize the importance, they pump a lot of money, and a large percentage of the GDP, as I explained, is allocated for R&D. And recently, we have also been hearing in this country, for example, the importance of innovations. And they talk about innovations all the time. This is great, this is good news. So there is some dynamics here happening that, that decision makers in this country are moving in that direction. Now, how to encourage industry, how to, not just the government or the government funding, how to encourage industry also to fund research here. Maybe, like what Dr. Karim said earlier on, if there is a win-win situation, if the industry sees that they are going to benefit from this research funding, I am sure that they will fund our research. So my suggestion is that academic institutions themselves, especially government-sponsored or government institutions, should start by having some generous funding of research, not necessarily, as I said, the industry. We wait for the industry a little bit later. The government should fund research, especially basic science and areas of research that are not clear, you know, to industry, and make some success stories that we can talk about, that we can publish in well-known art journals like Nature or Science. Then I assure you that industry will come and fund our research.
I just want to add to that, Nicholas, and I think you and I have discussed it before. I think the issue is also perhaps a bit more than the funding, Dr. Nashash, transcending that to research culture. I would say the research culture per se is not there, which is awareness of what research is and what does it take to do proper research, and who are the stakeholders and who are the beneficiaries. So to our credit, I would say this did not happen in advanced countries all at once. It's a very gradual process, and it took several building blocks on top of each other and driving the wave in a certain fashion at a certain time. So it will happen here, I have no doubt. I just think many elements have to come in place before it happens. So it's not just about the realization. So we do have, for example, in my slides you guys saw that we have generous funding. I have no problem with funding, and neither do you, Nicholas. I mean, we have millions of dirhams that are generated. Now, using those funds in a proper, effective way, and using them in time, and having the deliverables meet with our objectives of the research, and benefiting and serving society and translating the research is what we're having challenging. And then having the students work with us and getting a generation who knows what's biomedical. So you talked about a technologist versus an engineer, and we're struggling with that because we are basically producing the first generation of real biomedical engineers who are not sole technicians and who are doing engineering. And it's gradual, but it's not there yet. It's going to take time, and it's going to take all of us as a community. So when my students say, where are the jobs? And there are a few jobs, and they're rising. But my message to the students is that you are the ones who are going to create that job. You're going to be the first generation who recognizes biomedical engineering for what it really is. And its incredible capability of transcending, of bridging engineering with biology and medicine, and combining the multiple disciplines, not just using the skills from biomedical engineers, but also from mechanical and chemical and electrical. And I guess it's you guys. I mean, with the very smart lady who started by energizing us in the video, saying it's us. It really is bottom line us. We are the first, you are the first generation who is doing this.
I'll just add one small point, yeah, and maybe this has to do with why Dr. Kinder has enough funding. Yeah? Not a big no, frankly, maybe we have a problem in the Middle East of looking outside the Middle East when it comes to research, when I mean the target research. Yeah? So I believe one of the major success and best practices in Emirates that they are trying to look alive the research. I mean, they are trying to solve their own problems somehow. Yeah? I mean, you have a lot of problems that they need engineering solutions in your country or in your region or when you come to them. I mean, this belonging. Yeah? And if you can target your solutions to this, aim targeted solutions to these problems, you will get enough funding because you have a lot of money in every country. Yeah? I was so lucky, for example, working in Germany for a program called Made for Germany instead of Made in Germany. Yeah? Where I was trying to cover this in a couple of countries that didn't work for political reasons. I mean, the idea was very simple, that you make something for the people, so you will have a lot of help. And maybe this vision is somehow missing outside Emirates. I believe it is in Emirates, but I'm missing it outside actually. So.
May I pose a question that I believe is relevant to a lot of the students here before we move on from this point? You said that the culture of research is not very available in the region, and therefore I'm sure a lot of students are intimidated to get into the field of research. What would you advise a student who is interested but is not sure if they have what it takes? So, can you start with Dr. Ali?
We started about 3 years ago with this very small drug delivery lab, and the moment people knew, my students knew about this, I had an overwhelming and enormous, and I told you guys, you keep me going. I mean, it's busy because I have to teach a full load, but you guys keep me going. And I think if the students have the opportunity, and if they do find good projects that they can work on, they will be energized. I feel that because I really see it in all of your faces. I have a lot of people here in my research group. You guys are amazing. And I think you just want the opportunity. You want to see that you guys can make a difference, and then you're willing to work long hours, right, Hamad? Yes. I guess that's my thing.
Does anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, with our limited funding, yeah. I mean, my advice to students is to approach professors and seek opportunities. Professors working in biomedical engineering at the American University of Sharjah and other universities, they have very interesting projects. And the only way to know about these projects and be interested is to go and sit and talk to the professors. And you won't believe it. Professors love that. They love to talk about their work to students. So that's probably the best advice I can say at this stage, because after these kind of simple talks at the beginning, ideas come up, and soon you will find a research idea being implemented, and after that followed by a conference paper, followed by a journal paper, and this is how research goes. So that's my advice.
So, I will say it again at the risk of, what did we say here, envy? Just kidding, they're all good friends and we work together actually. We have funding, you guys come on over. But she mentioned an important, she said intimidated by research, and I'm going to highlight that for a second. So I don't think research is intimidating, nor should it be. I think as humans, and Dr. Laiti talked about the human brain, we are born to be researchers. Just observe babies. From the minute they open their eyes to the minute they crawl or take the first steps or become adults, we're exploring all the time. But you know what our problem is, if I may have the liberty to say so, in this part of the world maybe a bit more than others, is we are somehow, be it in our homes, learning in educational environments, schools, universities, etc. We are somehow directed more into learning that is passive learning, directing it away from our imagination, forcing us into certain directions, and limiting us. I feel oftentimes, and it's unfortunate that I feel this way, or I see that schools are limiting rather than enabling us. I believe that by empowering our students and enabling them and opening the doors to their imagination, there's no limits. I mean, it's there. The exploration and the desire to go far and explore and figure out is innate. It's within all of us. It's just opening the doors, unlocking it. So you can start small. It's not about funding. It's about imagination and discipline. Research takes a lot of discipline, right? Because you don't see, it's not like you study, you do an exam, you get an A. I mean, for a good research project, it's years and years, and it's long-term satisfaction. But it's there. If it's great, and eventually it happens. It just takes a lot of discipline.
One thing.
Okay, so I believe that why we're here today is for exploration and inspiration. So if anyone else has any other questions to discuss.
My question is to Dr. Adil. When you talked about the drug delivery using ultrasound at the tumor location, how is it precise or accurate that the drug will get to the tumor, only the tumor, not anything around it? And if there is any malfunction with the capsule and it breaks in any other place, is there a procedure to recontain the drug, or it might affect any benign cells that's not the tumor cells or healthy cells?
Okay, so in drug delivery, I didn't talk about everything. There are three main principles. There's something called passive targeting that I mentioned, where you get the capillaries that are leaky and they allow these capsules to go inside and accumulate preferentially at the tumor. Then you have something called active targeting using a receptor-mediated endocytosis, and then you can get trigger targeting. I use ultrasound. You can use magnetic waves. You can use microwaves. You can use pH, you can use temperature, so there's more than one way to trigger these drug delivery vehicles. Now, the nice thing about it is because the tumors are so leaky, you're going to get a strong accumulation at the tumor, and then you are only going to focus the ultrasound. Remember, ultrasound are waves. Just like you can focus light onto a point, you can also focus these waves onto the tumor and release the drug only to the tumor. If something happens, of course, before this is implemented in humans, we have to make sure that these particles are stable, so on and so forth. If something happens, it's not going to happen to the whole population of the particles. And so, if a little bit is released, it's much better than having this chemotherapy that's invasive, that's the conventional one that we have now, that's systemic throughout the whole body. And so maybe it might have a little effect, but not as big as it is now.
Maybe we can do it in Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I just have one question for Dr. Kinda. You mentioned once, allow me to paraphrase this, that biomedical engineering sits between medicine, engineering, and science. And can you give us a brief example of how this applies to your research in biomechanics, for instance?
Sure, absolutely. So for example, in biomechanics, I study and I teach about about looking at the human body as systems. So if you open up the human body, it's in fact a bunch of mechanical systems, electrical systems, chemical systems, thermal systems, fluid systems. So basically there's the science of it all, where if we are to model it and to study it, it's all fundamental equations that basically apply to every single, from system equations to all types of equations. There's the engineering applications to it, which and I'm talking in general here, which, let's say, for example, I'll give you one of my projects, which is my students and I worked on designing insoles for diabetic patients with diabetic feet, and the idea was to try to compensate for the lack of sensation and the lack of circulation that these patients have by sensors, so various sensors. So for example, we leverage the fact that the body has different systems, where we use temperature sensors, pressure sensors, what else? Humidity sensors, which are some of the main expressing or representing the main deficits that is part of the disease, and trying to measure and compensate for that, alerting the patients when there was issues related to any of those. So a threshold of humidity that's over the normal, or of temperature, or of pressure, and so forth. So basically, there's the engineering and applying basically the sensors, and there's the science, where we're studying the actual effect of the environment and the body environment, and the bridging, putting that together, finding an application that is in an actual product benefiting the patients.
Thank you.
It's a good question. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Because we're almost out of time. Okay, just 2 questions.
Just a comment from my side, because all of you coming from the biomedical engineering. and coming from the medical community. And just my comment here that medicine is waiting you, especially when you look for the area of the malfunctioning organs. Still the area of kidney failure, liver failure, heart failure, very major problem. And when you look for the area of cardiac transplantation or renal or liver, still there is a big area here for the biomedical innovation to find artificial replacement for these functions. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, yeah, we cannot do it, but at least to be more close to this area. I think biomedical students in AUS are lucky to have most of you here, especially when I think when we compare this research culture in this department compared to others, I can say there is no comparison. And still also there is an area for this, for the area of the research culture. It's very important for the raising our kids. The education has to be different. But also there is an area here regarding the leaders. Again, they are lucky to have research leaders in biomedical engineering here. But the area of the leaders of researchers in all the universities in our area, I think this is very important. Need research, but in the middle management and middle leaders, sometimes there's question mark if these people are already believe in the new generations to be innovators and researchers. This is something we need. It will need time, but I believe that with the enthusiasm of young people, they are going to oblige us or others to push them and support them more. Thank you very much.
Thank you.